So I'm going to hit the record button, and then anyone that could not join can we can just send this out. So this might just be a Jake and Ryan small show. So Ryan, if you do have questions, feel free to shoot it in the chat. I'll try to monitor that. And then I sent out an email to group a PowerPoint. Oh, here's Josh. I sent a PowerPoint that basically has some links, and I'm going to try to get through all of this in our hour and a half together. But a bulk of this evening is to go over how to use Tournament Manager. Tournament Manager is really going to be the kind of the backbone of the event, believe it or not. So if you've never run an event, knowing it and understanding how Tournament Manager works is going to be very important. It's going to help kind of determine what your agenda is. If you don't know what that is yet, it's going to determine how many fields you need. If you don't know that is yet, it's going to help you decide how many referees and volunteers. So I always kind of say, if I'm going to do my own event, I kind of start with Tournament Manager and build out from there. And you'll also be able to figure out how many students can you have, or how many teams can you have at your event. So I put together a presentation. Randy helped me put together a lot of these slides. There's 14 slides, and it looks like the first 6 or 7 are all Tournament Manager related. So I'll go through how to install Tournament Manager, how to use it. If you guys have questions as we go, please ask. And then if we have time at the end, we'll go past Tournament Manager on just what are best practices as an event partner. I can't start without thanking you all for being event partners. It's one thing to ask you to be a robotics coach, and thank you for being a robotics coach, because that's such a big part of what we're trying to do in Indiana. But even taking the next step to be an event partner, I mean, that's just huge. I mean, you're just like superhuman to take on coaching and hosting an event. Last year we had over 120 events. This year we're going to need more than that. So we're always looking for new event partners. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not easy. It's just like coaching. You don't know what to expect your first year. There's a lot of unknowns. It's a lot of kind of stress. Once you do it once, you almost get hooked. You find out that it's enjoyable. You get your community involved, your school involved, your parents involved. You'll probably end up making some money as a fundraiser, and it guarantees a spot for your team to compete at every year that's close to your school. So there's a lot of benefits of being an event partner. Please don't be intimidated and discouraged your first year if you had a bad experience. Just know that Randy and I are here to help and support you, and ask questions between now and your event. Feel free to ask questions to me or Randy. We're here to help get you started. So I'm going to throw up a slide really quick. I don't know if you look through this agenda or this PowerPoint, but here's things that I think you need to know before you dive into Tournament Manager. And if you don't know all these, Tournament Manager will help you decide them. So things you need to know is, what is your agenda for the day? So typical events, they open at 8. Matches start around 10, 10:30. You take a lunch break from 12 to 1, and then you're done around 2, 3, 4 o'clock, depending on how many teams you have. So if you kind of have a rough idea on what your agenda is, number of teams depends on how large your gym, your cafeteria, whatever you're using is. Depends on how many volunteers you can have. More teams you have, more volunteers you'll need. So size is a requirement, and the number of teams, and the number of fields. Again, if you only have 2 fields yourself, you might have to borrow fields. I always tell event partners, don't buy fields, just borrow them from teams that are coming, maybe comp their $30, $40 registration. And then the last thing you'll need is your robot events. Most all of you probably already have a robot events page for this. Just need to have access to that, because we're going to steal a code from that as we do it. Feel free to download Tournament Manager. I'm going to pull up this. Here's our example of scenario.
Hey, George, can I say something off topic for just a second?
Yeah.
Okay, I have an announcement to make. This is effective as of now. Last year we had 1,754 teams for the whole season. As of today, we have 1,755. From here on out, it's going to be a record.
Nice. So more teams than that.
Elementary and middle school?
I think the number Randy's referring to is elementary, middle, and high school.
Oh, and high.
Okay, There's 1,020 elementary, 506 IQ middle school, which last year was 444. So that's quite a bit more. The BRC middle school, which is the middle robot, the V5, there's 44 of those teams, and the high schools are 182. So yeah, that's all teams in Indiana.
Wow. Yeah, that's great.
I had to say that. Yeah.
No, that's great. So I just kind of put an example of some agenda. We're just going to do a smaller event of 24. I can't say that's smaller. Some events are 16, but 24 is right around there. I think some events are as large as 30 or 40. 50 is a lot to take on your first year. So if you want to stick to that 24, 30 number, is probably a good number for your first year. And then 3 to 4 fields is probably your bare minimum that you're going to need for your event. So we're going to work in the example today off of just this. I'm going to go ahead and show, hopefully you guys can see my screen. Are you able to see it, Jake, Randy?
It's a little small.
Yes.
Is there a way you can make it a little bit bigger?
Well, I think there's a zoom button that you would adjust at the top, zoom to whatever size you want. I just changed mine to 100%, but yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
Okay, good. Okay.
So if you guys had not been on RAC's news website, at the very top, I'll just walk you through RAC's website. If you go to event partners and then it says event partner resources, there are loads and loads of things that you should probably read about in here. I'm going to just point you to a few things and then we'll get right into Tournament Manager. Event planning, if you guys have not gone.
Okay, hold on a minute. George, hold on. He went to that kind of quickly. Is everybody okay with how he got to this? Does everybody know where to find it?
Yep.
Okay.
So everything that you need is probably going to be, everything that I think you should be reading right now after this webinar should be right here. And some really good things that says pre-event checklist, and there's an event partner guide. Those are two really nice, useful things to look over. There's an event day checklist that you would do the day of. So anyway, look through these if you haven't so far, if you haven't already. I know Jake's doing a league. I'm not sure who else is doing a league, but there's a league guide in here, and we'll talk about that in Tournament Manager. And then the big, most helpful source of links are under judge and volunteer resources. So I've embedded, and Randy's embedded the links in our PowerPoint when we refer to them, but almost everything you need is in here. So the judge manual, the score sheets for the referees, the inspector checklist, all of the things that you need for your volunteers are going to live in somewhere in here. The announcements you make throughout the day, head referee, I mean, everything is in here. So really helpful. But then you can Google Tournament Manager, or right under here it says TM support. You can click on Tournament Manager software. And Tournament Manager works on PC, Mac, or don't worry about the Raspberry Pi right now. That's a whole different conversation of why you could use a Raspberry Pi. But I'm going to be using a PC, so I would install this. It says Windows 10, 7 or more. So I got Windows 10 on this. And so I've already installed it. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to show you what the very first screen looks like. And again, I'm going to use the information from that PowerPoint I told you about. I'll just put this right here.
Okay.
So,
hey, George.
Yep.
You have a couple here who are doing leagues that are on this webinar, and just to let you know on those doing the leagues, what you do for a session, you may not necessarily need everything that's on that list. Use what would work for your session, because it's a league is more of a it's not official like in the gymnasium set up like you're used to. It's like you can set up in your classroom for a couple hours. So it's very a lot more minimal.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna show you essentially how to set up an event. A league is no different. There's just one button you would click, and I'll walk you through all that as well. So we're gonna go just setting up as an event, and then you can go back on your own to do a league, but I'll show you the league portion as well. So the very first time you set this up, I'm gonna click Create a New Tournament. You're gonna save this file. This will be your important, it's called a database file, or a .db, Tournament Manager data file. this is going to be the file for your entire tournament. If you have,
Okay, and
go ahead.
on that name, I prefer you put the last 4 numbers of your RE code as part of that name, because trust me, as you start accumulating these files, if you got it by that code, it's going to be easy to find.
Yeah. So he's talking. We'll get to what that code means here in a second. But if you're doing a league, you're going to make sure you want to make a copy of this file after each tournament. So if you have 4 or 5 6 different sessions, each one you're going to want to make a copy and save it on a thumb drive, or you can email it to yourself. But always make sure you have a copy, because if you have multiple sessions at your league, this DB file, if you lost that, you almost lost all of the scores from the first, second, or third session. So make sure you always have a copy of it. You can make this at any point prior to your event. So if I host the state championship, I could make my state championship DB file right now. So anyway, I'm just going to as an example, I'm going to put this in a junk folder. I'm going to call this EP webinar. I'm going to hit save. And
okay,
Randy said he would put the last 4 digits of your RAC code. We'll get to that here in a second.
Okay. I was going to say, once you start doing these, it's just like when you do a new event after you've done one. And like next year, if you do or your next event, rather than create one from scratch, you just bring up a previous one, and you could just update that to whatever the current time and date is. So just FYI on that. Another reason why you save those.
So I've hit the save button. It brings you up to this. There's nothing to do here, so I'm going to hit next. And this is where you're going to actually need your REC code. So where it says event code setup, for testing purposes, I'm not going to enter this, but I'm going to show you what would happen if I did. So all of you will want to do this, because this is where people during your event can, if you're publishing connected to an internet, you can be casting the scores on VEXvia, and it'll be a lot easier for you to download all the team names and numbers. So you would click right here that the event is listed in Robot Events, and you need to go into Robot Events. So I'm going to go to Robot Events right now. And this is where I said you need to have access to Robot Events. So I'm going to log into mine. I'm going to go into Administrative. And I've got all the state champions right here, so I'm just going to click on VEXiQ Elementary and just going to grab one. If you're hosting one event, you'll probably just have one sitting in there. And this is what you need for Tournament Manager. So this is your event code, and this is your Tournament Manager code. Just for giggles here, let me just open up. This is what my event looks like in Robot Events. So I'm going to show you where this REC code is right here, this 0988. This is what Randy was referring to if you wanted to. This is showing REC, or Robotics Education, VEXiQ, and then 19 is the year, and then 0988. So if I go right here, this is my page as if someone was signing up. This is that code that Randy was referring to. So that's my event partner code. Most people don't know it. It's okay if you don't know it. You can just steal it from here. So I would copy this, and I would copy this, and when I put it into Tournament Manager, it would download it from the website. So when I'm on the software, download the website, and I'll show you where that'll be useful. So I'm not going to do it for this example, because I don't want to make a state one right now, but you would put your code in here.
And by the way, practice as much as you quite a bit between now and when you actually do it, but keep that code. Don't put the code in until you're actually ready to link to your Robot Events thing on there, because you make any changes here, it's going to write to that too.
And then we're all VEXiQ, so I'm going to select IQ. I'm going to hit next. Now, you have a lot of different options here. For most people, I select medium tournament. Basically, the further down you go, the more functions you get, but it's like complex mode and simple mode on a calculator. If you just need plus and minus, multiplication, divide, you use simple mode and you're fine. You need scientific, you go advanced and you get more features like square root. So that's essentially what happens. The further down, the larger the event, the more features you get. Medium tournament for what we're doing here is going to be probably just fine.
Okay, and George going to be talking about this here in a few minutes, but A small tournament means you only have one field set. He'll talk about that here in a few minutes, what that means. Medium means you can do multiple field sets. Go ahead.
And so I'm going to hit next. So this is all important. Where it says event name, you can, I'm just going to go back to my robot events page. You can steal what you call it here. And I don't remember the exact number of characters, but it won't. It's important what you put here because it's what you're going to see on the screen for the timer. It's what you're going to see when you print out the match list. However, there is a limited number of characters. So if I put this whole thing, I think it'll get cut off somewhere in between. So just get the gist of what you want to call it. So for this example, I'm just going to call it EP webinar. But you could call it, you know, the Woodview League, whatever it might be, and then create a password. Now, this password, you want it to be easy enough that you never forget it, and easy enough that you can share with other volunteers, but not easy enough that kids can go in and guess it. So I'm not going to tell you what I use for state because I'd be stupid because this is recorded and I put it out there. But again, easy enough to remember and share with other volunteers, not too hard. So 1234 would be a bad password. Essentially, if anyone had this password and they were on your Wi-Fi, they could go in and change scores. So,
I mean, like you knew your principal's first name because nobody's going to think about using that, or you know, or a family member, or something that you're going to know.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna, for this example, I'm gonna do what I told you not to do. 1, 2, 3, 4. You could do create a random password, but that is way too hard in my opinion. So come up with something. This is new features they've added where you can add a judge's password, an inspector password, and a scorekeeper password. We're not going to talk about that right now, but essentially if you got a little more advanced, you could have a laptop at the inspection table and just allow inspectors access to the inspector part. Same with scorekeepers if you didn't want a volunteer having access to everything. I trust my volunteers, their parents, you know, as long as you're if you don't trust the volunteer to have access to tournament manager, you probably shouldn't have them volunteering at your event. I guess that's how I feel about it. So give them this password. If you want to make it really top secret, you can make different passwords for different things. We're just going to keep it there. I'm going to hit next. This is where league play would come in. I know Randy said a couple of you are doing leagues. You would select this. And Randy, if you wanted to speak to the minimum percentages, by default, it's 60%.
Yes.
But this is
yes. Here's what you're going to do in your league. You're going to have 3 separate sessions, qualifying sessions. And I'm just going to pick an easy number to remember. Let's say you have 20 teams. Well, you have all 20 your first session, then you're going to have a bunch of scores and all that stuff that you'll save. Then your next session, for some reason, 5 of those teams don't make it, so you have 15. Well, they will compete, but those 5 will end up just being at the bottom of the list because they didn't compete that time. What the 60 means is all the teams have got to be in at least 60% of the total matches of all sessions to qualify for the finals. That's what the 60 means.
okay.
So like if you have a teams that miss, you got 3 sessions, they miss 2 out of 3, and they only went to 1. Chances are they're not going to hit that 60 and they won't qualify for finals.
Gotcha. So I'm not going to do league. For those of you who are doing league, you can go back and play with that feature and I'll show you what it would do and how it would work. But anyway, I'm just going to move on without it checked. We're all using Squared Away. I don't know what reason you would want to go back, but these are all the previous games. By default, it's on Squared Away, so we're going to keep it there. And then now, where it says team list, if you enter that RAC code and the tournament manager code, it would populate all the teams that are currently signed up. You would give the team number, the age group, elementary or middle, and the name and the organization. So all that would auto-populate. As Randy said, if you just wanted to play with this and test it, just what would it look like with 24 teams? What would it look like with 35 teams? What if I did 50? You could play with those things now. So I told you I'm going to do 24. So to manually do it, I'm going to click on generate teams. It popped on a different screen. I'm going to just put 24 in here. You could play with, like I said, just enter 50 and you can see what it looks like. I'm just going to do 24 and hit OK. It just populated 24 teams. It randomly, I don't know why by default, puts it in high school. That doesn't matter for this purpose. And it named them Team 1 all the way to Team 24. It will auto-populate if you enter the right stuff in robot code. I'm going to hit next. Final alliances. This is going to be up to you on the event partner. So, you know, you think an alliance is 2 teams. By default, it says 5. So if you had 24 there, Randy, is there a certain percentage RAC recommends number of teams that make it to finals?
It's either, I think they did in multiples of 5, like 5 or 10.
Okay.
But like for example, if you got an odd number of teams, and if you want to do all of them, I don't know if I'd want to do all of them because that means somebody's going to get left out, and that's not necessarily a good thing for that team gets left out. So, yeah. 5 is the default that most people do, but you could do 10, which would be 20 teams.
You know, if you're running a league, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, if you're running a league, would it be recommended to include every team in the finals? I mean, since you're kind of, you know, everybody's meeting and you would expect them to come to that final session, would it make sense to include all the teams in the finals, or?
Well, yes, but every team that meets the 60% rule.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yes. I really think it's up to the discretion of the event partner. If you wanted everyone to make it to the finals, I don't think that anyone would be upset with that. The only thing I would be careful with, in Randy's example, if there was 25 teams and you let 20 in, I know not everyone needs to make it in the finals in a tournament, but I would make it a little bit less. So I would let 16, 14, or 12 in, because if you had 24 or 25 teams, if you let 20 in, it's like there's only 4 teams that didn't make it. That's like, I don't know, that's just kind of hurtful. But if it's like 10 teams didn't make it and you're part of that 10, I don't think it's as hurtful. And I know that I know that we want it to be competitive, but that just seems like you're inviting so many, but 4 don't make it. So doesn't sound like RAC has a specific ratio or percentage. So anyway, I'm going to keep it at 5, so there'll be 10 of the 24 will make it. I'm going to hit next. Now, this is complicated, field sets. This is something you guys can kind of guess and check. Like, you can play with different field sets and different number of fields. I made a visual example of what different field sets mean and look like. So if you've been to, you guys all been to different events probably, and every event does it a little bit different. So essentially, a field set is how many fields will be going on at the same time, or how many groups of fields will be going on at the exact same time. So I'm going to use 2 fields in this example. If you had 2 fields, field 1 and 2, if you did 1 field set, 2 fields, it would basically go on your mark, get set, go, and that would be on field 1. After the minute, the buzzer dings, then field 2 would go on your mark, set, go. If you did 2 field sets with 1 field on each field set, it would be 1, 2, 3, go, and field 1 and 2 go on at the exact same time. The more field sets you have, the faster your day is going to go, and you'll see it significantly increase if you can get more field sets. However, you got to think, if you did, let's say, scenario 1, you could technically get away with 1 scorekeeper, 1 referee, and maybe 1 resetter, where they have the kids reset, because you could do field 1 and then the referee walks over to field 2 and scores field 2 and then walks back to 1. You did field 1 and 2, you would probably need 2 field resetters, 2 referees, and you probably wouldn't have time to have the kids reset the fields because you need 2 more alliances coming up right after that match. Here, it's like you've got a match, and then while they're cleaning up, you're moving on to 2. While they're cleaning up, you're moving back to 1, and you go back and forth. So 2 field sets speeds it up, but it requires more resources.
Well, yeah, and there's something else about 2 field sets too, is in tournament matchup they have not, it hasn't been fixed, or they haven't tried doing that yet, but you will not be able to put up the teams that are competing for each field. It's only going to have one on there, so you got to keep that in mind. You won't be able to show, like, like if you're running match 1 and match 3, you can't show them both at the same time. Tournament Manager doesn't allow that.
In 3 field sets are kind of weird and funky, so I'm not going to go over it too much. I mean, it's basically you do one and then the other and then the other. It's weird to do all 3 at once and then take a break, and then all 3 at once and take a break. I would say most common is 4 field sets, 2 field, with 4 fields is 2 field sets of 2. So that'd be these 2 fields, then you take a break, then you do these 2 sets of fields. I would tell you at state, this is what we do, is we do this is what we do. We do these fields, and then we move over to these fields. So these 2, and then these 2. So you almost you double. It's going to be twice as fast as if it would in scenario 1 on this. So I don't know if you guys had any questions on that, if I explained that or complicated it. In this example, I'm just going to do field set 1 with 2 fields just to keep it there. You can call your fields names if you wanted. So I'm going to remove these. If you wanted to call it the blue field and you click add, I'll show you later where this comes into play. So for state, we name them after our sponsors, or we had like the Eli Lilly and the Amelia Earhart field. So you can name them after that, or you can do numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, blue, red, whatever. So I'm gonna just do that. I'm gonna move on. Skills challenges, how many fields you're gonna have. Most events are just gonna have 1 field and then maximum number of attempts. Then that number is 3. Remember if you do a league, you're able to do 3 attempts for driver and programmer at every single session that you guys have. So your maximum still here would stay at 3.
That's huge. That's 4. I mean, if you're doing 4 sessions, that's 4 different times that you can attempt skills instead of having to go to competition. That's huge.
That is an advantage with the league. Yes.
I just clicked on the next button where it says pit display setup. I wouldn't worry about this. This is a little bit more advanced. I'm not going to discuss it. That'd be more of an advanced session. Let me hit next. We're almost done here. I know there's been a lot, so let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to go to the example I had, which is 10:30 to noon and then 1 to 3. So we're going to have qualifying matches from 10:30 to noon and then 1 to 3. So I'm going to just enter that right into Tournament Manager. So this is a little wonky the first time you do it. So where it says start time, I'm going to click when my event is. So let's say my event's this Saturday. I'm going to pick the 26th of October. I'm going to do 10:30. So I'm going to adjust that to 10. I'm going to type 30 a.m. I'm going to do this until noon. Okay, and I'm going to do, right here it says match type. You want to click that down to qualifying, and it usually will be in red if there's a mistake you're making or you're missing something. So I'm going to do qualifying. Now, cycle time, this is kind of a science. It's basically telling how much time you have between matches. So 1, 2, 3, go. You have a minute, and then that downtime between when the buzzer rang to your next match is essentially your cycle time. How much time do you have? I think, Randy, am I not mistaken that we usually stick at about 2 minutes in the beginning of the year and then it gets smaller? Or is there a safe number yet?
Yeah, 2 minutes is a good one to start with. Because like you just said, it includes the minute match, but then, like let's say you got 3 fields, that's 3 minutes total. And if you do 2, that's more than enough time.
So this is how much time you have between matches to get ready. So I'm going to do 2 minutes. I'm just going to click add. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, your goal for an event is to get 8 matches for all teams. So that's the goal. Every 4, they throw away the lowest. So you want at least 8 matches for every event. Right now,
but no more of that either. Lot will do 10 and 12. Don't do that. Keep it at 8. 8 is the period on that, if you can.
Okay, so 8's the number. The total number of qualifying matches I have in the morning is 3. So this bottom right here, we want to make this 8 when we're done. So every team gets 8. So now we've only added the morning. We need to add the afternoon. So I've got 1 to 3 here. So I'm going to add 1 to 3 as my next session. So I'm going to go 1 to 3. Now I'm going to go qualifying. I'm going to hit add, and we'll see what this brings it up to. And if it does not work, there's things that we can do to adjust. So I'm going to click add. Let's see what happens. Look at that. What do you know? We got perfect 8. That's like you can give yourself a gold star if you got that, because that's the goal. If what I was getting at, let's say I'm gonna say no, we have to be out of the gym by 2. So let's just hit save. Ah, shoot, we only got 6, so that's a problem. So some things that you can do to fix it, and I tell this to people when they run an event, you could probably start playing with adjusting the match cycle time down in the afternoon, because you want to almost think if you have volunteers that have been running it all morning, it takes a while for them to figure out how to set up the field and how to get the kids moving. The kids are kind of confused on where to queue and how to do the field. Once they get that figured out, they come back from lunch, things seem to run a lot more smoothly. So you can adjust that cycle time in the afternoon if you wanted. But you notice, look, I'm already down to 1:30 and I'm still not making my 8. You might have to talk to the principal and be like, all right, we need to go to 2:10. So I'm going to hit 2:10, hit save. No, still not doing it. What if we squeezed in 1:15? Oh, the way I'm editing this is I'm double clicking on my line. I'm changing the number and I hit save and it updates it. Ah, man, 2:15 still not doing it. What if we did 2:20? And I hit save. Oh, there it is, 2:20. So
you can also cut into your George. Right now, you're doing an hour lunch. You could cut into lunch too if you have to.
Yeah, you could cut into lunch. You could make it earlier in the morning. I mean, I'm just saying, where I was saying the guess and check come into play. If you're really set on 2 fields, you want to do one at a time. You have so many endless scenarios that you can do here. I am at 4:30. I did that in 30 minutes, which is good. I was going to show you what field sets do to your number. I mean, if I went and added 2 field sets, 1 field each, meaning you're doing the 2 fields at the exact same time, you're going to double this number, which, as Randy said, you don't want to do that. But if you increased your number of teams, you're like, I don't want to get 40 teams, you could consider doing different field sets, and you're going to really, so there's endless possibilities to reduce your number or to increase your number to 8. So you can play with time, you can play with cycle time, you can play with field sets, number of teams. Those are all the variables you can play with. I would tell you in the first year team, 1:30 is getting a little tricky. Like, that's a pretty fast cycle time. Let's see if we can get away with 1:45. Nope, we can't. So that's getting a little hairy. You need some really good field resetters and parents helping you out with that. So, oh, there we go. I did 1:35. I saved us 5 seconds. So anyway, there's my 8. So I'm going to move on. Is there any questions about this?
Yeah, Ryan had a question in the chat. He asked, and I have the same question. Is there a number of matches that we should shoot for in leagues, like during each session? Do you think like 2 or 3? I guess it depends on how many sessions you're planning on having.
Okay, yeah, I can answer that. I'm going to assume you're going to have at least a 2-hour session, but it depends. I mean, you can make it a 3-hour session. That's up to you. Of course, you need to allow, from the time school's out, allow time for them to travel to your place, so probably half hour. But then whatever you can fit in that time frame, if it's 5 or 6, that's perfectly fine. It's whatever you can fit in for that session. So, like for example, it'll be way more than 8. I mean, you don't have to have, the entire league does not have to be 8. It could be 5 per. So that'd be 15. If that answers your question.
Yeah, that helps. I didn't know that we could do more than 8 for leagues. That's really helpful. Okay, cool.
Well, Randy, you're not saying more than 8 in one session, are you?
No, no, no. What I'm saying is, for a given Saturday event, it's 8. But for the league, no, they don't want to do over 8. That'd be way too much for a session. But what I'm finding out is they're doing 4 or 5 a session. But then when you multiply it,
Yes.
when you do it 4 times, then yeah, you got quite a few sessions.
I wanted to make sure that if you multiply it by if you multiply the number of matches over time, it can exceed 8. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we're doing like 3 sessions, and then we'll do a finals. And our first 3 sessions, each team could do 4 matches. They would have 12 matches before the finals.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you want to make it worth their while to travel to your school, during the week. Like, I mean, yeah, you're
right.
3 would be enough. Yeah. So yeah. Okay.
All right. So up to this point, this is all behind the scenes. This is you doing planning. We're going to move pretty soon into the day of the event on how you set up your display, this timer, the scoring, all of that. So we're at 8. This is more of an event versus a league because we're doing 8 in one day. I'm going to hit next, and you have to, right here it says create qualifying matches. I'm not sure why you have to click that, and it doesn't automatically do it for you, but you have to click on it. It's doing some thinking. It popped up on another screen down below. I have 3 screens up. So there's basically a little bar that was thinking. So it thought, and it gave us 96 matches, 8 per team. So there's nothing more to do. We created it. If you wanted to, you can show the schedule statistics. This is kind of helpful. It's kind of neat. You could really nerd out on this stuff. So some examples here. If you had teams that complain to say, oh, I only had 2 minutes between matches. Well, match spacing, the difference between any 2 teams. Let's see, the difference between any 2 appearances of the same team where what value wins back to back so the number of matches back to back, the minimum is 6 minutes. Oh no, is this matches or time here, Randy? It says that looks like matches. I think that's matches.
Yeah, matches. Yeah, matches.
That's a minimum of 6 matches a team. And so you think we did our 2-minute cycle times times 6, that's at least 12 minutes at the minimum that they have between matches, or of an average of 12. So that's about 20 minutes, 25 minutes they have between matches. So this gives you some nice data. You just want to make sure that minimum's not too aggressive because some teams are going to have a match and then they're going to have to go right back in line and have a match. And some of you have had that before. So you just want to, some people don't even look at this, but this is some nice data to look at. I'm going to hit next. Now, each of you have different awards that you are giving out, and Randy can speak to this, but on your robot events page, under awards, it kind of shows what awards you're going to be handing out. If you don't know what awards you're allowed to hand out or what awards your event is qualified to hand out, Randy can help you with that. But you would specify what awards you're giving out. So if you are doing judged awards, you'd put them in here. Some of you might not do excellence in design notebook. You're just teamwork champion. You would put those in here. And then you're also getting a trophy pack. So you can align it with what comes in the trophy pack if you're handing out those awards. So anyway, by default, it has most of the common ones on here, but it says like STEM Research Awards. Some of you aren't doing this. You'd uncheck that. You can always go back and change this. So but that has to agree. That has to agree with what's in robot events. Yes, this has to align what is on robot events. That is correct. When I hit next, this is for if I enter that robot code and tournament manager code in the beginning, I click these boxes. It won't let me do it because I don't have it. If I click these boxes and my computer's hooked up to the internet during the day of the tournament, this is specifying, yes, put on robot events the matches, the rankings, the skills challenges, so that teams can see them live. Okay. Okay, but I have a caution here because this could happen. If you do this like the Friday before and click all that, I'm talking about for Saturday or even session, either one. When you click the match list, it's going to immediately put it out there. Now, if you don't change the match list, that's fine. But if on the day of the event you don't have these same teams, then that match list that everybody got in advance is no longer correct. So I've always advised people not to check that until they know
how many they have the day of the event, and then check it.
Yep. And I'll show you what he means. You can't run a match list. Well, it's difficult to run a match list the night before because you don't know what teams are going to show up. If you're running an event and you're confident that everyone shows up, I would tell you some experienced event partners will run the match list gambling that all 24 teams show up. I do that for state. I run all the match lists, stapled, double-sided, all the night before, crossing my fingers that all teams show up. In the last 2 years, they have. But if one did not show up, I'd have to rerun match schedules for that division because the schedules wouldn't be fair because one team wouldn't have an alliance partner, 8 different times. So you have to just make sure when you think about that. But anyway, this would be best to check the day of, the morning of. You can add it to your morning checklist, have the scorekeeper, click on these, and then and now you're done. So I'm going to hit finish. The window's going to go away. It's going to do some thinking, and then I'm going to pull up Tournament Manager. I'm going to show you the day of things that you do. Maybe I could show you some pre-planning things. So it popped up down here. This is Tournament Manager. So the first thing I'm going to show you is reports, and you're going to go down to match list, qualifying match by match. This is the match list I was telling you about. And I'm sorry, everything's popping up on my other window, so I'm going to just have to pull it up. And I'll zoom in on this. So here is an example. You remember the field names that we labeled? It says blue field, red field, blue field, red field. You remember the name of the file we saved in the beginning when it said, what is the event title name? That pops up right here. So I said you call it the Woodview League. But if you go too far out, it gets chopped off. So EP webinar is what I called it. Blue field, red field is what I called it. And if you remember, there's a 1 minute match, and then so your cycle time is that 1 minute match, 1 minute time, 2 minutes to the next start. So it's 2 minutes, every 2 minutes will be a match. Okay. If you remember in the afternoon, so I'm going to scroll down. In the afternoon, I'm going to go to the next page. There we go. In the afternoon, you can see that it's 1:14 and then 1:15. It looks like it's 1 minute later. Well, it's actually 1 minute 30 seconds. So it's not every single one is going to be like that. You can see in example 5, there's a 2 minute difference here, then 2 minutes, and then a 1 minute. So they don't have the 35 seconds. It's not like we're queuing up at 1 minute, at 1:11 and 35 seconds. Anyway, I think you understand that. So you
Hey, George, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So when you were setting that up in the Tournament Manager, and yours was just for a tournament on a Saturday, would we have to set up all the sessions on that, that page where you're like adjusting the times and all that stuff? Would we set up all of the sessions in there, or do we just do like that night's session and print off a list of matches?
No, for the league, you do it by session. You don't have to do it all in advance because that's what I was trying to say.
Because not all teams are going to show up. Yeah.
Yeah, because and there were leagues last year where that was the case, where they didn't have the same number at each session, even though overall they're part of the league.
Okay.
So you can set up, kind of get something in place the night before, but then you won't be able to finalize it so you know who's actually there.
Okay, thanks.
Some very simple things I'll throw up, and then I'll go into the day of the event, the things that you have to do. But some simple things, I would say what you've done up to this point is sometimes the most challenging, difficult thing of an event partner is getting 8 to work. Josh is talking about any tech requirements to be aware of when running Tournament Manager. We had another school advise us to not run the manager on a server that we cannot connect remotely to. They said running on a device in the room is best. I mean, Josh, I like to use a computer that does not have school admin, lockdown. If you had a computer that you had full access to, is sometimes the best, because this computer is going to have to be hardwired to the internet. You can use Wi-Fi, you can. It's just Wi-Fi is not always dependable in schools. It's preferred to have a hardwired computer. And if you have a computer that doesn't have to have school admin privileges, that's always a plus and a lot easier to deal with. I've used some really old Windows 7 machines at events, and they work just fine. So you don't really need a high-powered machine for this. It's mostly your internet access that you want to have a hardwired line if you can. Most gymnasiums and cafeterias have at least one somewhere. So you might have to buy a 50 or 100 foot long Ethernet cable to get to your computer. And then the other problems we usually run into are, as I said, installing software.
You'll need your IT person. I know every school's different as far as what they put on, what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do on the Wi-Fi's. Because I know I was at one last year where the display was not allowed to go over the Wi-Fi to the pit display computer. And the IT person had to come in and allow that to happen. So, anytime you're going to use your school network, because of all the stuff they put in there, you might make sure the IT person is on board with that, aware of that.
Yeah, I do a quick little test in the gym or cafeteria that you're doing this in with my IT person weeks in advance, not the morning, not the night before your event, because you're going to run into technical problems. Every school is different. Every security and networking is different. So run a couple tests with your IT person. Ask them to volunteer. Buy them a T-shirt for your team. Make them feel like they're part of the team. They're the IT support for your robotics team. So do those things before. And then if you have an event Saturday, set this up Friday after work. Have your IT there. Have parents helping, your kids helping, setting this up the night before so that you walk in on Saturday, everything's set and ready to go. If you guys are doing events after school, good luck. That's just a challenge. Let me show you the display and the scorekeeping, and then let me go back and show you how to check in teams and how to check them in an inspection and rerun match schedules if there is a team that doesn't show up. So displays, this is probably, I guess, the next most difficult technical part is you're going to need to have a projector of sorts projecting, or a screen or a big TV to show the time for the students or the audience. So if you're going to have the same screen for the audience that the kids will use, they just have to turn around and look, that's fine. You're going to need at least one timer that's visible to the students and preferred to show the audience. So I'm going to give that example, just at one timer, one projector, huge screen that you'll use. So you're going to go to displays, and you're going to go start new display, and you're going to do audience display full. Now there's a lot of different options here, but we're just going to deal with audience display full. So you think about it, audience display, we want the audience to see it. Full versus overlay. Full is a full screen. Overlay is if you use a green screen for a camera, and you're not going to use that in this example. So I'm going to click this, and it's going to pop up on my other window, I bet, right here. And it says what field controller you're going to use. So we only have one field set. If you did two field set, you'd have two options. Right now we're going to call it field control 1 or field control. I'm going to hit continue, and this screen pops up. So this is the audience display. RAC has already embedded some logos from their sponsors and some infographics that scroll through here until you start a match. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and I'll show you how to put in your own logos if you wanted, which is a cool little touch. I'm going to try to make this smaller so that you can see all of this at the same time. I'm going to minimize this. So, all right, so there we go. So the very first match, this is what you would tell your scorekeeper to do. And again, if you could have your scorekeeper learn this before the day of the event, that's going to be a lot more helpful. Running a tournament manager in a scrimmage is a perfect way to test that, Josh. That's a great idea. Yes, running it during a scrimmage, not the day of. You should not try to learn how to run tournament manager the day of a tournament. And I also should specify, as an event partner, you should not be responsible for one specific area. So you should not be a referee, you should not be a scorekeeper, you should not be the inspector. I know you'll end up being those things, but you should be a floater that is helping put out fires, helping support your volunteers. So I try not to tie myself down so that I can walk around and see how things are going. And then I find volunteers or parents or people to fill in where needs are. So anyway,
I can guarantee here, George. I can guarantee you on the day of your events, you as the event partner you'll have people coming to you from all sides with all kinds of questions, everything, and get you starting to wonder, hey, did I screw up? Did I forget some stuff? And no, you didn't. That's just how it is. You're the go-to for everything. That's why you cannot be tied down anywhere.
Yep. So I'm gonna start my first match. I'm gonna show you how to start it, how to score it, all of this. This screen right here, you're gonna want to put this on your projector. So this is the computer that'll be hooked up to your projector. You're gonna go to view full screen on whatever monitor it is. I have 3 monitors right now, so I'm gonna go view full screen, whatever that is. And you can also click full screen on timer only. And what that'll do is it only goes full screen when you hit start, and then it will minimize to smaller. So those are another option. If this is the dedicated screen you're going to use for the timer and everything, you can just leave it on full screen and you don't do that. And then also on your settings, you'll want to use extended screen versus duplicate screen. So what I mean by that is if you right click on your desktop, I'm getting a little technical here, but I bet most of you have dealt with this before. If you scroll down on Windows 10, there's extend and there's duplicate. Extend means if this is my one monitor and this is my second, I have 2 monitors doing 2 different things, kind of like what I do in this video right now. This is on monitor 1, which you can't see. Now it's on monitor 2, which you can see. Duplicate is literally a mirror image of, or a duplicate of everything that you see. So you figure out how to do that. I would suggest an extended screen. All right, let's start a match. So over here in the plus sign, it says qualifying. I'm going to right click on qualifying 1. If I click on it right now, actually, it says team 1 is with team 2. No, I lied. It says team 8 is with team 15. These numbers will be, since you put in robot events, these will be the actual team numbers, 4472B and 12345A, whatever it might be. You're going to start the match by right-clicking, and it'll say Queue Match. Now, this new little control system is going to pop up. This is going to be the scorekeeper's best friend. So that whoever's doing your scoring will also probably be your timer. They can rearrange these windows however they want. So they can enter scores here, and they can hit the start match here. So the MC is going to say, all right, drivers, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. The person on the score is going to do start match. There's that buzzer if you guys haven't heard it this season. So they hit start. This is the countdown. While this is going on, the scorekeeper can actually be, this is kind of weird because I'm doing match 1. They can't be scoring match 1. But let's say they're queued up match 2 and they need to score match 1. They could be entering scores while this is going on and hitting save. This is a bad example because I'm scoring match 1 while it's going on. Tournament manager would allow me to do it. I don't want to record myself doing something so, bad. So I would say I'm going to end this. Match is over. They get the score sheet. They would enter the score, and I'm going to hit save. Now, when I hit save, you can see over here there's a green checkbox. That's good. By the end of the day, you should have all green checkbox down the row. So let me do an example. I'm going to do qualifying match 2. I'm going to queue it. You can see up here on the screen it says qualifying match 2. MC says, drivers, are you ready? Scorekeeper, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. It starts. This is where I'm saying you could actually go in and start scoring these buttons on here. I know I get questions, should we use an iPad or a piece of paper for scoring? For a first-time event partner, I know Randy's going to have a different opinion maybe, or other people have a different opinion. I say use paper. Remove all the variables for any technology problems you can run into. Use paper. And in fact, going back to the RAC website, I'm going to back up. You remember that RAC website in the very beginning of me talking with you, I said, here's where all of your resources are. You go to judges, volunteers, there is in here a referee score sheet right here. It says VEX IQ Challenge score sheet. You can print these out, and the score they enter in here, they have even graphics on here showing how many balls are in there. Gosh, that's annoying. How many balls are in there? How many balls on top? How many red cubes? How many blue cubes? How many green cubes? You have to tell the referees to put the match number and once they put the match number in here, and they put the team numbers as team 1, team 2, put the team numbers, you'd cut this in half before and everything. Referees would hand this to the scorekeeper. This, let me see if I can pull up Tournament Manager. Let me just rearrange this. You can see this scoring matches the score sheet here. Inside cube, top left. Top left. On top of a cube, top right. Top right. So everything lines up really nicely. So it's almost like they're just looking at what box goes in what. All right. And Tournament Manager won't let you do weird things like red cubes in a corner. Well, there's only 2 red cubes. You can't enter more than 2. So Tournament Manager has limited the number of things that you can do. I can't say it's dummy proof, but it's almost dummy proof. All right, I'm gonna hit save. Now, if you have to rescore something at any time, so I'm gonna give this a score and hit save. You can always go back to qualifying 1 and you could reset a score if you wanted. So now it's back down to 0. You can unscore matches, you can hit save. Now I'm back at 0. I mean, you can always edit matches after the fact. You just go right down the line. We said there was 96 matches. Throughout the day, your scorekeeper is just right-click, queuing, hitting start, the timer. It's just behind this window right now. It's right here. It's going. They're scoring matches. They're queuing up the next one. They can always hit end early here. They can reset the timer here. All of these things are possible. Any questions that you guys have so far just about Tournament Manager? I haven't shown you inspection and check-in yet, but just starting a match, queuing a match, hitting start. What questions do you guys have? Nothing? Nice. All right. So you do that throughout the day. You get all the matches scored. So let's score the last one here. So here's 96. We're going to go ahead and hit save. And then when you're ready to go into finals, you're going to go to matches, create final matches. So Tournament Manager automatically, like I'm sure you've maybe asked an event partner this question. Oh, my lowest score wasn't dropped, or oh, this wasn't scored correctly, or things like that. Tournament Manager does all the calculations for you. The event partners and the scorekeepers don't add up numbers. They don't add up scores. They don't remove scores. They don't do the rankings. Everything is automatic in Tournament Manager. So when you create the finals, Tournament Manager is doing that. You're just clicking a button. So I haven't talked about how to deal with difficult coaches, and some of you on the phone might be one of those difficult coaches. Hopefully not. But as an event partner, if you want people to have a good experience and come back to your event, you need to make sure that you're going in with a positive attitude, knowing that there's going to be coaches that complain. You need to keep a smile. You need to say, oh, thank you for letting me know. Let me look into that for you. In your head, you might be saying, oh, you're being rude, disrespectful, and you're a jerk. But just smile and say, you know what? Thank you for letting me know. I'll look into that. And you should look into whatever problems they bring up. I'm sure they have a really valid concern. So look into that. Let me go into the match. So I'm going to go to create final matches by going to matches, create final matches. And here's where this specifies like how many people were going to make it into the finals. So you can include or exclude people here, or you can create the finals matches. I don't really remember what I did for the finals. So I'm going to just click create finals matches. Okay, and then what happens here is under finals, here are all of my finals. So that's right, I did 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are my 5 matches. I think I did 5 alliances when I made this. So this was your very first match. This would be the 2 lowest ranked teams here. The 5th one is going to be your 2 highest ranked teams. So it looks like 15 and 9 are your highest ranked teams. That would be your last finals match. You'd enter those scores, and then at the end, you're going to see what your final output is, or who the winner is after all of these. One thing I didn't show you that's helpful is if you had another screen. I closed that display. Let me pull up that display. This is something that you can do in the pit. Well, actually, this is something that you can do between matches. I'm going to go to field control and pop up that window. You can actually put the rankings. This is what I do at state is if you put the rankings in here between matches, you can see what the current rankings are. You can see what the last 3 matches are and what the next 3 matches are. Depending on the size of this, sometimes it'll show more, but you can see like what the last matches are. You can see what it says like finals 1 is on the field right now. If I scored that, so if I hit save, it's going to, well, that screwed up a lot of things. It doesn't like that I didn't do those other qualifying matches, I think. So anyway, let me show you, any questions on finals, scoring, any of that? Is there any other questions? All right, so let me show you guys how to check in teams and how to check in teams for inspection and how to rerun it if someone did not show up. So if you guys go to Tools, Inspection, if you had an extra computer, you could hook up a computer to the internet and have someone load up Tournament Manager, and they could actually check in people in inspection right here. Or you can just have a list of pages. This is what most people do, is they have the 24 pages of inspection sheets. They just take it over to the Scorekeeper, and the Scorekeeper goes through all of them, and they'll say, all right, team 1, passed, hit save. Team 2, passed, hit save. They can just go right down the line through all of them. Same thing happens with, I'm going to go to Tools and Team Check-in. You can do the same thing. Team 1, you could have this at the registration team if you wanted. You could say Team 1, checked in. Team 2, checked in. You go right down the list. You could do all teams are here. They're checked in. During the teams list, let's say, oh, team 3 isn't here. I could uncheck them and hit save. Right here it says checked in is no. And one thing that you could do, so let me put team 1, just so we remember, team 1, 2, and 3, let's say they don't show up. If you printed the match schedules the night before, you got to throw those away. You don't want to get them confused and lost. You have to rerun your report. So the way you can do that, I'm gonna have to, I already ran my finals matches, so you wouldn't do it in what I'm doing right now. What you would have to do is go to Tools. So you checked in all the teams, you found out that there's 3 not there, you call the coaches, they're like, nope, snowstorm, I'm not coming. So you're instead of 24, you're gonna have 21 teams there. I'm going to go to Tools, Regenerate Match Schedule. So it's like you've already done this. It's saying you've already entered scores. It's going to erase all the scores you've entered. Well, I haven't entered any scores because this is the morning of your Saturday event. So I hit yes. Here's what window it takes you to is back to the welcome screen. So I'm going to hit next. Yep, I'm going to keep all of this. Right here it says use all teams including the 3 or exclude the 3. You want to exclude the 3 teams that haven't checked in. So if you notice what that removed 3 from my total, now everyone gets 9. So now I actually have to make an adjustment. Maybe you just adjust this to 40. There we go. Now we have more time there before. So I'm going to hit next. I'm going to click create match finals. And now I have 84 matches because I removed 3 teams. You think about it, you remove 3 teams times 8. You got 24 less, not technically, you have 12 less matches that you'd have to run. So I'm going to hit next and finish. It's going to rethink. And all I'm going to show you to prove it, and hopefully this all worked out, I'm going to go to my match list. And you should not see team 1, 2, or 3. And I would double check. Yep, I don't see 1, 2, or 3 anywhere, so I'm good to go. I can hit file print. You'll need access to a printer that morning of. Or you can have a printer hooked up to the score table and then run to a photocopier and make copies of it. People call it photocopier anymore? All right, what other questions do you guys have in Tournament Manager? I've showed you check-in, I've showed you inspection, I've showed you scoring. I've got other things to bring up. We've got 25 minutes. What other questions do you guys have about Tournament Manager?
Are you going to talk about skills?
Oh, thank you. Good question. Yeah. So there's a couple ways you can do skills. Two different ways, the easiest ways. Let's say you're limited on computers, you don't have internet in the skills area. You could, this would be more of a challenge, but you could just have the referees score all the skills on paper and then hand those paper scores to the scorekeeper, and they could just enter all the skills matches at once. So here is Tournament Manager. I'm going to just go to Skills Challenges. So before I was in Scoring tab, here's Rankings, here's the teams list, here's Skills Challenges. You just go and say, all right, Team 5, here's the score. You know, the score looks the exact same, but this is the most important thing. They need to make sure they specify driver skills or programming skills. I'm going to add, and it says now, the button, it says add driving skills, or is this programming skills? So I hit it, and now it's scored. If you try to do that 4 times, it will tell you you've already done this 3 times. So here's Team 5. I say that now, and hopefully I'm right, but it used to say, no, you can't do it. So here's 5. I'm going to add another one. So on this 4th one, it's going to say no. There it is. And it says, 5 is already entered above the 3 limits. Are you sure you want to override this? No, your scorekeeper doesn't authorize that. So you cannot enter a 4th score. And some of those kiddos will forget. I mean, I've had people do the punch card system like they do at Worlds. We did that at State. You have punch cards to keep track of the 3, or you just have an Excel spreadsheet when they check in at skills that shows what team are you. All right, you put an X next to how many attempts they get. And so anyway, Jake, my 2 options are: 1, you have a computer at the skills table and you're entering as they come in, or 2, you don't have a computer at the skills and you just take all the paper and you give it to the person doing skills. I mean, at State, we have a table that has 6 computers, 1 for every division, sitting at a master table, and I can go in at any time and as long as that computer is hooked up to the internet, I can connect to any one of my tournaments. So
you can have Tournament Manager up on 2 computers at the same time. You would just have to somehow transfer the file over to them, right?
Yeah. Now let me show you how to do that. So what you need, this is getting a little more advanced, but this is really helpful. I wasn't planning on doing it. I don't think I can do it on 1 computer. I would need a second computer, but I'll show you what you do. Let's say this computer right here is your master computer that you turn on Tournament Manager. It's hooked up to the internet. And hooked up to that same internet, and your IT person would have to figure this out, or you could figure it out. Hooked up to that same internet, you would go to help, get IP address. You need to know this number right here, which says 192.168.1.1.240. This is the IP address of this computer. So you write that down. I just went to help, get IP address. You write that down, and I'm going to close Tournament Manager. So I'm going to close it. And I'm going to reopen Tournament Manager. This would be on the 2nd computer, so the first one's still running. You wouldn't close it on your example. I'm doing it, George, in this example. So on the 2nd computer, you would go to connect to a remote server, and you have right here, if you type in that 192.168. I don't remember, 1.2, the password is that 1234 or whatever you gave it. You hit continue. As long as that 2nd computer is on it, it's going to open up Tournament Manager as if it's connecting it to it remotely. So when you do all this right, it will connect right to Tournament Manager. You have all the same exact functions. I would suggest, Jake, or any event partner, if you have 2 computers at home on your home network, that's sometimes the easiest way to test that out. It becomes more like on your Wi-Fi at home. Test that out on 2 computers, open up Tournament Manager on 2 computers and try to do a remote server connection like that. Because it becomes a little more challenging at school with Wi-Fi and firewalls and things like that. I'm going to show you what opening. So I'm going to open up Tournament Manager. So let's say you saved Tournament Manager and that's Saturday. You're ready to open up the file. The first time I click create, the one time I connect to remote server, that's if you have it existing, I'm going to open up existing tournament. and I think I called it EP webinar. I don't know where I saved it, but this will work. Other questions? Oh, Josh, sorry. Is there a way to show the timers on a tablet? I remember seeing that at each field at a couple tournaments last year. So yes, again, more advanced. You can hook up an iPad up to Tournament Manager. I don't have I'm trying to think on this webinar how I can do that. So if you have an iPad, Josh, do you have an iPad or Android? Either. Okay, so if you have an iPad, you go to the App Store, you download Tournament Manager, and it's a limited function. It's just really a scorekeeper and a timer on there. So I guess you asked if you wanted it on a timer. All right, so this is a little more complicated. If you wanted to control Tournament Manager on a timer, we do this at State at Skills. There is an app. What is the app, guys? The practice app. Randy?
VEX IQ Hub.
VEX IQ Hub, thank you. So Josh, you could use VEX IQ Hub, and it has a practice timer on there with the buzzer, and it's the timer, and it looks all the same. But basically, someone would have to actually hit the start button on the iPad. There is a way that you could use the iPad to control the timer. I don't know if that was your question. That's a little bit more challenging. Should it sync with Tournament Manager? Yeah, because all you're doing if you do it with a tablet in the Hub app is all you're doing is allowing the students to see an iPad. It's a little advanced for a first year team, but I could show it to you. If you go to Tools and Mobile Devices. Gosh, Randy, is this too complicated? I feel like this is way too complicated to even try to show this for a first year.
I think for first year they need to just do the KISS method. Yeah, this is something to do, once you're confident with the main part of it.
Yeah, Josh, I don't mean to say you're not smart enough, because I'm sure you're very capable of doing it, but it is. I was very reluctant at State to use tablets, and then last year at State we had problems with our tablets. Honestly, use paper, use the method I just showed. You're removing all technology barriers and problems that you can run into. There are some event partners, like Kyle Love is mostly an EDR, Paul Myers, they use tablets, they love tablets, they are technical gurus that, they just thrive. If there's a problem, they're like, I'm excited to fix it. I like solving problems too, but I also don't like to be overly stressed out knowing, okay, that computer goes down, that projector goes down, my tablets go down, my internet goes down, I don't have a copier. Like, there's just so many technical problems I can run into. And then if you rely on iPads, you don't have a paper backup, like, you're sitting duck, you're screwed. So I just like the paper method. I guess I'm avoiding your question. I'm not giving you an answer. I'm sure there's videos out there on how to hook up an iPad. It's just a lot more complicated and involved. What other questions? We've got 15 minutes. I can go over all these other slides I want to show you. Let me know if you guys have any other questions. I'm going to try to fly through these. So these are things that Randy put together as reminders. So this is what you should have as volunteers for kind of each station. So at registration, you should probably have 2 volunteers with an Excel spreadsheet of all the teams. You can have Tournament Manager there if you wanted to check them in. Some things that you want to hand out is an agenda, maybe order forms for pizza, concession stands, whatever, a map of where things are, maybe where their pits are, pit location or pit map. So registration, just something you want to think of having volunteers. And these should be your polite greeters. They should be welcoming the teams, because the teams that show up, some of them have never been to an event and they're freaking out. They're scared and they're intimidated. So if they didn't, they forgot something or they didn't have their, release forms and all, like, you should have very friendly people at the registration table. That's their first impression of your event and they represent you. Inspection. There used to be videos on how to do inspection for your robot. There might be some this year, but there are new rules on the inspection. It's 11 by 19 by 15. and it cannot be taller than 15. That is the most common problem that students run into is the size. So just make sure that and I also tell the inspectors, don't touch the robot, have the kids expand the robot to its furthest length, width, or height. This is something Randy recommended, which is a great idea, is having a runner moving and taking the checklist to the scorekeeper to check them in, like I showed you how to check in on the inspection list. And then they can verify that every team has checked in. In Tournament Manager, this is a little bit more complex if you wanted to do it in the display. As you're checking people in, I do this at state and each session because I have so many to get inspected, but it helps remind people, is if you are up on this screen and you go to inspection, all of these teams, it shows you the status of people being inspected. So if I go over here to tools and inspection, and let's just take number 9, for example, I'll drop down number 9, and they have passed. I hit save. Come on now. 9. Well, I feel like this is the first time something didn't work the way I was hoping to. 9 should turn green, and it's crossed out. It's basically saying that 9 has been inspected. Not sure why that's not working. But
George, do you have them marked as present at the?
You're right.
Yeah, they gotta be.
They need to be checked in, don't they? Yeah. So I just did 2. That's what it looked like for 2. What Randy's saying is, I bet I don't have the team checked in, so you can't have someone inspected without checking in. I just checked in team 1, 2, and 3 here, so I could inspect 1. If I checked in team 9 right now, I bet they would turn green. Thanks, Randy. I'm gonna check in 9. Oh, look at that. Nice. Good work, Randy. All right, so that's inspection. Make sure, I would say you have about 1, as it says here, 1 inspector per 10 to 12 teams. So if you have 30 teams, get 3 inspectors, yeah, let them make sure they know what they're doing. Event drivers meeting. There's a nice document that goes over everything that you should probably discuss. Make sure they know where everything is. Where is skills? Where is the fields? Tell them, coaches, we don't want you behind or past this line. This is where you set the tone of the event. This is your opportunity to talk to and address parents, that they're respectful. Say that I would like to have a conversation with you. I don't want you to talk at me. So if you want to talk with me, you can do that, but don't talk to me. So kind of having that setting the tone. So anyway, event drivers meeting is a really important thing to do in the meeting. And then if you do skills at a different time, you should specify. Skills is only going to be run during lunch. So let them know they only have 1 hour during lunch to do skills. So make sure you remind them that. And then let them know how many teams are going to be in the finals. So anyway, all of that's listed in this document right here. Skills challenge, we've already talked about this, 3 attempts per. Tournament manager scoring videos. So this is kind of your needs. So this is my wish list here, is 1 computer at the main scoring table, 1 computer for the audience display for the announcer. If you need to use these 2 as the same one, that's fine. You'd use the extended view versus the duplicate screens. And then if you could have 1 pit display in the pits, let me just show you how you would do that. If you hooked up this computer in the pits, I could go to display, start a new pit display. And what's nice about this is this will not change to a timer as you're hitting the start button. So when I hit start, you don't want the pits to see your 1-minute timer. This would be for the pit display only. And sometimes I'll just have 1 laptop connected to the internet, hooked up to a monitor or projector, showing the rankings the entire time. And you can actually control that remotely from the main area. I could go to field sets. Wait, where is that? I forgot where that is. Oh, pit display control. I can actually control this remotely. I could put the schedule up. I could do skills. I could do rankings. I could put inspection, whatever you wanted. Okay, sorry, let me go back to this and we'll be done here soon. Judges awards. If you guys haven't looked at this document, I would suggest as a event partner getting someone in charge of judges. Your most knowledgeable parent that knows the most about the awards, get them in charge of judges and make sure they know this document inside and out. When you registered in robot events, a trophy kit should be sent to you, and it includes all of these. The plates come off, so if you wanted to offer different awards or you wanted to offer more trophies, you can all do that on the VEX website. I don't know if I'll have time to show that because I only have 7 minutes left, and I have to go to the restroom. Referees, this is new this year. In addition to the videos, they actually have a certificate course, which I would advise that if you have, especially if you're doing a league and you have the same referees every time, make them go through this certificate course or ask them. This is a great way for you to learn the game, go through this course, and then they get certified and they can come and state. We definitely need people at state and they need help at Worlds, so they are certified to ref at state or Worlds. And there's the scoring sheets I showed you. And the last thing, finalizing an event. This is something I'll let Randy talk about. This is at the end of the day, after you've scored everyone. Here's something that I didn't show you. After you have finalized, you've created the finals, so you created finals list, and you have put everyone in there, you scored them all out. Tournament manager doesn't like what I'm doing. You scored them all out, you've done all of these. You have to do the awards. So you have to specify excellence was given out to team 5 and you hit save. You have to enter all of the awards. So you do that at the end of the day. And some people do this on Sunday. I recommend doing this before you leave, before you shut down your computer, so you have everything done. And Randy, last thing they want to do is what?
Okay, the last thing is finalized. That's after you've entered the awards, like what was mentioned here. But for leagues, you do not finalize after each session. On those, you just want to make a copy of the file at the end of that session, and that's going to be added to the next session. It's when you're done with your very last league session, at the very end, after you do your championships and all that stuff. That's when you finalize it.
Okay.
And keep in mind, until you finalize it, any team that won, they won't get an invite to state until you finalize it. That's what generates that email.
So you're just gonna, once you're done with all the awards and all the matches, you're gonna go to file, upload results to Robot Events. This won't work unless you're connected to the RAC and Tournament Manager code that you entered when we set this all up. I do have 5 minutes left. Let me know if there's any questions. I know we had some people in league. I'm gonna go in and show you guys what the league part looks like. It's almost identical. I just want to show you what it looks like when you go from one session to the next. But anyone else that's in there right now that has a question, please let me know. I see Julie Ryan, Josh. I think some of you might be part of leagues, but is there any questions that you guys have before we dismiss here? No? Okay, so let me pull up Tournament Manager. I'm gonna just go, if you remember I was saying like you can mess with this, you can test this all you want. Not wanting to load. I might not be able to show you guys because Tournament Manager is not wanting to load. There we go. So I'm gonna go to open. I'm gonna click my event partner, webinar 1. Oh, okay. So here's what happens. I forgot. This is one I already did. This is a different file, not the event partner one I showed you. So at the end of your first session, let me back up and show you this all to you. At the end of the very first session, once you save everything, you close down Tournament Manager, and you have made a copy of that Tournament Manager DB file. The next time you go to open up Tournament Manager, so that same exact file, let me just show you what happens. This is the screen you're going to get. So this is session 2. You're opening up Tournament Manager. I'm going to go to Open Existing Tournament. I'm going to find my file. I'm going to hit Open. And what it's asked, I've already done a second one. It's going to ask, do you want to open an existing session? And you can select the date of when one of those happened. So maybe you need to edit a score or something. Or you're going to create a new session. So we might call this session 3. And it'll already put the date in there, but if you want to feel better about yourself, you could say, all right, this is on the 24th. I know today's the 23rd. We're just going to change it. And then you hit continue. What's going to happen is all of your qualifying matches, all the teams, they're going to be set to 0, but there will be an existing ranking based on the previous sessions. So I'm going to put this back up. You can, as Randy said, you can keep all this stuff the same. The fields are the same. The time is all the same. Oops, I have to add it. The times are all the same. Come on now. What doesn't it like? Oh, there we go. Oh, gosh dang it, it's up here. It's saying, do you want to use all the teams or exclude the teams that are not checked in? We're gonna exclude all of them. We'll just have 4 teams. So they show up to the session. We create the session, and when Tournament Manager opens, this is what I'm mentioning, is that the qualifying matches will all be reset to 0. However, my rankings are still going to be valid. It's going to show, all right, team 13, 20. These are all recorded from the previous session, but everything is going to look identical and the same. And then again, if you had this is my 3rd session. If I went to a 4th one, I would save this, I would close it, I'd reopen it, and it's going to say, what session do you want? Do you want the 1st session, 2nd session, 3rd session, or do you want to create a new one? You'd create a new one.